What is autistic happiness? This question was asked today, and I find it a very interesting topic. Sometimes it is better to work out the map for yourself rather than have it given to you in terms of learning. A big part of you feeling content and safe and not stressed will add to your own happiness. So mapping yourself out is very important. There is that saying, if you have met one autistic, you have met one autistic. We may all be diagnosed as autistic, but then even there you have level 1, level 2, and level 3. And Donna Williams put it as autistic fruit salad model. So if you want to map out yourself, it really helps to read a lot from other autistics or listen to videos, podcasts, and then you can compare. Very often, maybe this is a alexithymia thing, until I don't hear it from another autistic, I am not aware that I have that. Or it's more like hearing it from another autistic gives me the words from what I experience but don't know how to verbalize. And then you get a feeling of where you differ, where you have less difficulty or more difficulty, and then you can see if you are level 1 or some of your difficulties are level 2, which means that you would require substantial support. It's really very different for every autistic. Once you have mapped yourself out, when you know where you belong, then I think this will add to you feeling safe, not stressed, and then this can also lead to some inner contentment. For me, it was key to know that I was autistic. Now I am diagnosed, and finally I don't feel ashamed anymore of being me. When you have mapped out yourself, you will understand your special needs, and they will differ from other autistics' special needs. That's why you need to map out yourself. So I also looked into the PDA profile to understand that, And then I also looked into ADHD. So there went a lot of research and time into understanding what I was and what I was not. Sometimes you go down the wrong alley. It doesn't matter. So it's never a waste of time to look into something. And that opened a door for more self-exploration, because now I can look through the frame of autism, thing that happened in my life, look at it from that perspective. This is me at work. Sorry for the background noise. That's just how it is. And I am working on a solution there as well. This looks promising. It's a hearing protection, and it seems it's exactly what I'm looking for. Earbuds that cancel noise but still let me hear what customers say. So the tools you use will be very individual, and this is some kind of adventure, and you have to be ready to experiment also. For me, it was very important to first identify all the things that didn't agree with my body, all the food intolerances. For me, it's fructans. Fructans belong to the FODMAPs list. So I had to look into that. Then there is the lactose intolerance I have also, and I have to be very careful with fructose. I probably wrecked my liver through the high fruit intake as a fruitarian. That was idiotic, but I didn't know any better. So now I don't eat any fruit as a carnivore, and it really helped me to restore my health. So that was definitely worth it. My body also reacts to a lot of that stuff. And the legumes, very much so. Very strong bloating, and that's so uncomfortable. So life gets very easy as a carnivore. That was a great solution for all my food intolerance issues. In addition to lactose intolerance, I also have casein and gluten intolerance, I would even say allergy with the casein. I have a very strong reaction to casein, and whey too. Very strong migraine, diarrhea, and so on, the typical symptoms. So once I had identified all those intolerances, it was very easy to just avoid them. On a carnivore diet, you can do that very easily, and you don't have any cravings. You may think a healthy diet is totally unrelated to autism, but it isn't, because many autistics suffer from digestive issues, and you can really improve quality of life through a species-appropriate diet. Our species evolved by eating large amounts of meat, regardless of being autistic or not. I would even say autistics have a higher need of animal fats and meat, because our brain needs this nourishment. It doesn't work properly on a vegan diet. I will say this again and again, because it's my personal experience. We need to eat a lot of meat. So many people have reversed all their health issues in the carnivore community. Every single one of them. And the autistic carnivores, just the same. We all say our quality of life has improved by going carnivore. You don't want to go back ever, because you feel so great. When I was at my beginning carnivore journey, I looked into Natasha Campbell McBride. I read her book, the yellow one and the green one, and I listened to many of her lectures. Unfortunately for me, the fermented foods don't work because of my histamine intolerance. But I found her research very, very helpful, and she was the first I came across who said some autistics just couldn't digest any plant foods. For me, that was the key. So I decided, okay, I just try it. Because paleo had not worked for me. Veganism was an absolute disaster. My body was falling apart. So that's why I started to go into paleo in the first place. But that didn't work out because paleo actually is high in oxalate foods, which is another issue for my body. So once I left out all those things, also high oxalate foods, then finally my health started to improve. And within 1 month, I had no depression. Within 3 months, I was really free of pain. Inflammation had completely disappeared. My chronic hip pain and back pain was gone. I had suffered from that for over a year, and nothing would help. But carnivory reversed all those symptoms. So, I would say, when you eat a species-appropriate diet, your happiness will definitely increase. I had to find out that I had a histamine intolerance. That was a big puzzle piece. And not every autistic has histamine intolerance, of course. But for me, it was really a big puzzle piece. So once I knew that, I could add a diamine oxidase supplement to my diet. I was already carnivore, and that had reversed a lot of symptoms, healed my gut to a great extent, but I had to do some more other things to improve my quality of life. So I would say happiness is very much an operation of finding the right bricks to fit together to build your house where you feel safe. You have to add one brick to another until you have your foundation on which you can stand on. And from there you continue. And for about a month now, I work with nootropics, taking Sami and Kava Kava for sleeping and anxiety. And Sami is really helpful for executive functioning, for more enthusiasm, and more creativity, also for migraines, which the Kava Kava also helps. So there are many benefits for me in taking nootropics as additional help, along with the carnivore diet. But that's very individual. You have to find out what works for you and what doesn't work. It takes experimentation. I think there is no way around that. But once you have found your tools, that's really a big improvement. And that will add to your happiness overall. Everybody is talking about basically running after happiness. And especially in New Age circles, you will hear a lot about it. And I'm so fed up. So that's why I wrote, happiness is overrated. It seems rather stressful if you pursue it consciously. Not what I would recommend. Happiness is not permanent. I for sure had states which you can call happiness. Absolutely. It was blissful, wonderful, beautiful. But those were glimpses, and they never lasted. They fade away. You can't hold on to it. It's impossible. However, if you find some occupation that satisfies you, gives meaning to you, you can be quite content. I think nurture is what gives you this contentment. In nurture, I mean not necessarily people, but rather special interests. They can be so nurturing. Whatever turns you on. For autistics, this very often is special interests. Whatever makes you feel alive. However, if there is too much excitement, it can also push you over the edge into a meltdown. So I always try to avoid that. What I prefer is the middle. Not too much, not too little. A state free of stress. For autistics, this is very important. Avoid stress as best as possible. For that, you need to map out yourself, because then you know what your triggers are. Once you have identified them, you can try to avoid them or find ways you can perhaps learn to tolerate them better. Also, you can add to this optimization through diet. For me, that means lots of meat and fat. Animal fat, that is. That's a lot of happiness. A good piece of meat. This is so satiating. This is happiness through food. I don't mean that in an addictive way, but this is feeling satiating to the very core of your being, because this is what your body requires to be healthy. So this for sure will add to your happiness. And being carnivore makes things very simple anyway. So make your body happy, feed it what it needs, and you will feel more content, more satisfied, no cravings. There is that inner calm. I think very much has to do with feeding the body in the proper way. Of course, you always have your differently wired brain, and with it often comes anxiety. So as a carnivore, I still get anxiety, but it's always linked to triggers, outside triggers, changes that come unexpectedly. You cannot avoid that. Unexpected sounds. I love it. Not. I always jump, especially when people come and I am in a thought process deeply somewhere else, and then suddenly they talk to me. Oh my gosh, it makes me jump. Or just unexpected sounds. Yeah. Causes anxiety. Can't avoid it, right? For me, a big piece of mapping out myself was the realization that socializing is exhausting. I even go into some state which you could call catatonic when I socialize too much, when I can't get away, when I don't have solitude. Once I was invited for a weekend to be together with a few other nice ladies. Back then I didn't know I was autistic, and I trusted that this would be a nice encounter. But I completely failed to be part of this group. I went into complete shutdown. I stopped talking, interacting. I stopped moving. I was like a piece of wood, just there but not there. And I needed about a whole month to recover from this weekend. I felt depressed and suicidal after that, because I couldn't get away, have a break. I learned from that. To me, this experience was really traumatic. When socializing becomes so painful that you end up having PTSD. So now I know better, and I will never ever do that to myself. Autistic happiness is therefore avoiding unnecessary trauma. For that, again, you need to know what your triggers are, what will cause you stress, and then you need to have very firm boundaries in place. Saying no to things that harm you will also add to your autistic happiness. My happiness actually comes with a lot of solitude. Solitude for me is extremely, extremely, extremely important. I can't function without it. And unfortunately, my dad used to push me very much into being social, and I just couldn't do it properly. I would prefer to play all by myself. I did not really want to interact with other kids, but I learned that this is how it's supposed to be. So of course I tried, but then I felt really bad that I just couldn't do it properly. And then all those years in the cult with all those bloody social activities, it was insane. And they also didn't want you to live by yourself, because obviously then you would start to think about some other things, and there would be nobody to control you. So of course I always had some roommates here in this very small flat, and it was super annoying. And at some point I just said, enough, I'm done. Fuck it. In 2007 I had that burnout, and then I started pulling out from all the social activities in the cult. I didn't go to those bloody meetings that we were supposed to attend every single month. It was an autistic nightmare. So at some point with that autistic burnout, I would actually say, going on. I had to pull the plug and withdraw from all that stuff. And I pulled through until 2011, and then I said, enough. Because actually I also tore a ligament in 2011, which was a blessing because then I could just stay home for almost 3 months. And that was the time when I realized how much I actually needed solitude. I had the time of my life, just staying home all by myself. And back then I didn't know I was autistic, but I knew I was an introvert, so I didn't feel so guilty to really ask for solitude in order to recharge. By then I had read a lot about introversion, so that was a big puzzle piece until all the years later I finally found out I was autistic. Of course, that was quite another paradigm shift. Yeah, so finally, I have all my bricks together that built my foundation. And now, through the lens of the autism diagnosis, I can look at my life and all my struggles and difficulties. And it really helps to let go of all the shame, because I always felt like such a failure, especially in socializing. I just didn't know how to do it. But now I know autistics struggle with social interaction, and that's such a relief because it takes all that pressure away. So you see, now it's reframing all those experiences, and that's quite therapeutic, I would say. Once you have mapped out yourself, you know where you belong. And that will add a lot of stability and feeling safe. Because now I can actually stop masking where I don't need to, reclaiming my life, be more authentic. And that will most likely add to happiness. because it takes a lot out of you to mask yourself through life. So, there are really many bricks, one on top of the other, that lead to autistic happiness. I hope this was helpful.